All right, so before we get started, I'm just going to say that there's a few things that I see a lot of people going wrong with. So I just want to address them right off the bat. First off, they don't know the process. We're going to get into that. We're going to talk about that. You're going to thoroughly understand the process, my process, what I use. The other thing is people think that they need the best machine. They need this. They need that. You don't need that. I actually use 3 different machines in this video. I use the Wall Senior, I use the OSTER Fast Feeds, and I use the Masters, the Andis Masters. I just did that so that I could show you different elements of this, and we're going to redo the fade scale for each of them, and I'm going to stop the video a few times in between. But if you don't understand the process, that's one thing, that's cool. But the other thing that I see people doing all the time is they leave the head too much, they tip the clipper either this way or this way, and they are changing the distance that's set from the manufacturer. And if we look real close at this clipper, you'll see that this has a curved blade on it, right? Which means that flat is not going to be here, flat is actually going to be here, which this type of curved blade, this is the 1006 blade, this blade is actually good for using the C motion, scooping out, doing some clipper over comb. It takes a while for the 1006 blade to go dull, and furthermore, this blade might not be the best for getting out those really harsh skin lines unless you zero gap it, but that's not what I'm here to discuss. What I'm here to show you is the fact that you're not holding it flat is what's causing you to mess these haircuts up. It's causing you to struggle to get these lines out. Now I have a half on here. When I put the half on here, you can sort of see where flat is. Flat is going to be here, right? And that's where we're going to put it up against the head. We're not going to have it up like this. We're not going to have it out like this. And when I'm working it on the head, I'm keeping it on the head. I'm anchoring it to the head, okay? So when I turn it on, I'm moving it on the head, and I'm staying with it. That's going to stop me. If my hands shake, being up against the head is going to stop my hands from shaking. If I have any issues, anchoring on the client is always going to be best. So I tell people to anchor when they're using the clipper. Obviously, you're going to anchor it to the client by holding it on the client's skin. You can also anchor with your straight razor, just by simply using your fingers. I use this finger to anchor, and then I can make slight movements with the rest of my hand. So I can anchor and I can move with the rest of my hand. I can anchor when I'm using my trimmer. When I'm going around the ear, I anchor with the middle finger and go around the ear, and I perform my arching. So whenever you can anchor, please do anchor, because it's going to make you more consistent across the board. So let's get started with this. That being said, those are the 2 most common issues that I find people have. In this cut, I'm just going to comb through. I'm going to check out his hair. I want to feel for any bumps or abrasions or anything that I'm going to run into. We're going to turn him into this skin fade that you see right here with the little design, and I captured that at the end. So we're going to start with the number 2, and that's going to begin the progression in our fade scale. The fade scale only goes up to a number 2 when I do it, because I think it's a waste of time to do it any other way. Because if you can fade from skin to a number 2, you're not going to have any issues. And anything above the parietal ridge, taking comb, placing it flat alongside of the head, right where it leaves the hair, that is the parietal ridge. It travels all the way around your head, and anything above the parietal ridge will be handled with clipper over comb or scissor over comb. So really, the only thing you need to worry about is how are you going to attack this skin line, and how are we going to do this haircut. So there's going to be several checkpoints here in this haircut, and that's what I want to get across to you. If you reach a checkpoint and you know that you can get there successfully, then you know that you need to work for the next checkpoint. You need to work towards that. So the first checkpoint for us is just going to be reducing all this bulk so that I can see where I'm going to put the skin line in. Because I can't just go putting a skin line into a giant mess of hair, because I'm going to have no idea where I'm working. I'm going to have no idea what I'm doing. So I don't need to be scooping out. I don't need to be leaving the head. If you wanted to a little bit, when you get a little bit more advanced, you could certainly do that. But just keeping it flat and getting the length that you need to get out of each guard is going to do you a whole lot better than trying to flip, flick, or do any kind of fancy stuff. So once I've gotten all my bulk removed, I can see where I'm going. I'm going to work above the parietal ridge. I'm going to begin doing some clipper over comb. Clipper over comb, I have a whole video on it. It's very thorough. It's very in-depth. You're going to see everything you need to know about clipper over comb. I can link that in the card right here, and you guys can go and you can check that out. But for now, I'm just going to say that we want to make sure that we're holding the comb good, we're rolling it out towards us, and we're moving, and we're lifting, and we're moving. And we're using the best barber tools we got. What's that, everybody? That's your eyes, all right? So let your eyes tell you where to go. Look at it from different angles, different sides. You'll be able to see what's sticking out. Whatever is sticking out needs to be cut off. It's got to be gone. So the reason why I'm addressing this top part is because I want to make sure that I have this top part done and pretty much figured out before I begin my blend, so I know how low to keep my blend. Now this is a kid, it's a kid's cut, so there's going to be less area to work with. They have smaller heads, so I need to get this done a little steeper in order to make it look the way you've seen it in the beginning. So using the OSTER volts, I'm always using a 5-0. I like to be able to see everything that gets cut. When I put that alongside that comb, anything that's sticking out is getting cut off, and that's just the way I like to do it. Some people like to do clipper over comb with an open taper lever. Okay, of course this is open when I have the lever all the way down, and when I close it, that's closed. Closed being the close setting, cutting the hair closer, and open, leaving it a little bit longer. Okay, I'm going to go through, I'm going to put my skin line in now. Now that I can see what I'm doing, the number 2 is gone. I got that all cleaned up, and I'm going to put in my skin line. So the first checkpoint, we've already reached it. We've done our clipper over comb. We've got a rough draft, and now we're ready to put our skin line in. So let's start working towards the second checkpoint. Notice how I left the front of his hairline alone, all in the very front area. I didn't cut that all the way down because I wanted to leave something to be able to do an edge into later. So I'm basically going to begin this behind the ears, and I jumped to that other side of the head right away. I didn't try to connect it from one side all the way to the other, because 100% of the time you're going to wind up having to go back and fix it and make it higher on one side, because it's not going to match. It's going to be a lot easier to match when you jump to that other side, look at what you did, and then make that adjustment, and you'll be able to get that just perfect. Once you've gotten that, you want to make sure that you get all that hair off. The whole idea here is to make a small jump. So now we're going to go down to skin, right? When we go down to skin, this is where we're going to be at. We're going to use the electric shaver. We're going to take them all the way down to skin. It's a very small jump from skin to the trimmer, or from skin to the 5-0. So I'm going to use a trimmer in the very front here because that blade's too big. It didn't make sense to do that, and I want to get that all the way wiped down the skin as well. So I'm just going to go around the ears. I don't take a big old bulky guard and run it into a kid's head, because it's very easy to cut them, especially around the ear. Their skin is very thin. It's a very easy thing to do. So use the tool that makes the most sense, and we're going to just continue with the skin line. Okay, once I have that all the way wiped out and that last little bit of bulk is gone, I'm going to begin with the skin line. Now, you're going to see the way that I work with this machine. This is going to be the Bronze Series 9, but again, it's a small jump from skin to 5-0s. The whole idea behind my system is I want to make small jumps from here to here. So skin and 5-0, they border each other on my fade scale, right? Which means that they're very close together. So I'm going to begin working that skin machine into that 5-0 line, but I'm going to stop just below it. I'm going to flick out, and this is the only time where leaving the head is appropriate. Flicking out is okay. This is the only time that I'm going to tell you guys to go ahead and do that. Reduce pressure as you get near the line, reduce pressure, flick out, flip up, and also you can come down and with the grain, and that's going to take less hair. Of course, whenever we move with the grain, so you guys can see the grain in my hair, it's growing straight down like this, right? If I take this clipper and I go this way, I'm going against the grain. If I take this clipper and I'm going this way, it's not going to cut nearly as much, but I'm going to go with the grain. So make sure that you understand that, and sometimes you can use that to help yourself. You can also go across the grain, neither with nor against, which is going to take a little bit less hair than going directly against the grain. So why is this important? Because you're going to be able to use this in certain situations to get certain lines out without maybe needing to go to that next guard. I see a lot of people working on step 5 when they're not even done with step 2. So let's concentrate on where we are in each step, and let's make sure we reach this next checkpoint. So we're almost at the next checkpoint, and this is going to be the checkpoint across all of my channels where, like, this is before the fade begins. Anybody can do this right now. All I did was knock them down with a 2, put the skin line in, and put the skin in. And if you do it the way I did it, you might struggle a little bit. Even if you're new, you're going to be able to accomplish this far. You've gotten to this checkpoint, and you can do this, and we're going to move forward. I'm going to show you what to do from here. But it's so important that you're not on step 5 or 6 when you're not even done with step 1. So here we are. We're going to begin the attack on the skin line. I'm going to start with the OSTER fast feeds. I have it in the open taper position. So if we come over here, basically, we are clean all the way up into the 5-0 line. We have no lines in between skin and where we did our 5-0 line, and now we are attacking in between here and here. This is open taper, and this is closed taper. So I have an open taper on the OSTER fast feeds. Now, the next step here, you're going to see me working. As soon as I've created that 1 inch line, this is gonna be 1 inch. I know it's big, I'm blowing it up a little bit bigger for you, but it's all the way open. So if this is all the way open, and this is all the way closed, okay? This is how I prefer to do it. The way that I like to fade is very simple. I have the lever entirely in the open position as I'm working just under that line that I've created. So this is the line all the way to the open taper. Now I begin to close this, keeping it on a slight angle and keeping it flat. So important to do this right now because you really need to get these lengths perfect. So right now, I've only bumped this thing down, say just a tiny bit. So we'll say that it is still 90% open, because it is. That's open 100%. Now it's only 90% open, right? I'm working right here. I'm going to begin moving down. Now as I move back and forth, keeping it on an angle and keeping it flat, once I'm done with that, I'll jump down, okay? We'll call it 70% open. Just a total guess, but I'm just bumping this lever down. I'm going to stay just below where I worked in that previous area. You might feel like you're running over the same spot over and over again, but you need to trust me, you are making a difference and it is changing the hair. You're going to see this line is starting to dissipate, but this is not the place where you need to attack right now. So we'll keep going. So we're, say 40%, okay? So it's almost halfway close, somewhere in here, okay? And we're just keep on working down so we're 20, maybe 10%, until we're entirely closed. And we're keeping it on an angle and we're stepping down just gradually in little steps. Now you're going to notice that the Master Fades has little notches on it, but none of that matters. It's all just kind of a gimmick. Like later, when you get better at cutting hair, you're going to understand that just a little tap is going to be fine. Each time that I close it, I just come down. Don't worry about 90, 70, 40, 20. None of that matters. That was just a total wild guess as far as where I'm at. Now, I might want to start stretching the skin a little bit. I might want to keep it good because I don't want to be bouncing off of his head. I'm keeping it on his head the entire time, and the only time I remove it from the head is to make an adjustment with the lever. Make a little adjustment with the lever, and I'm keeping it on an angle. The reason why I keep it on an angle is because if I was to hold it straight flat, and I have this entirely closed, I'll create another line here, and that's going to be really visible, really easy to see. So sometimes I'm touching just a corner down, sometimes I'm just touching the corner down, sometimes I have it on an angle, but no matter what I'm doing, I'm keeping it flat and I'm keeping it anchored on the head. Now, if this is not perfect, check out my next step. What I'm up to right now is I'm using the trimmer. I jump back before I go forward. So we've reached that checkpoint, the checkpoint across the channel, like I said. Now we're moving on, and this is the next checkpoint. You do not move on from skin to open taper, which all this needs to be perfect. All these lines need to be gone so that we have a very clean fade from skin to open taper, okay? All that needs to be perfect. You see me return to the trimmer. If it's not perfect, return to the trimmer. If it is perfect, that's fine. You can move on. We're going to move on to the open half guard. That also is known as the 1/16. That's your half guard across the board, okay? And we're going to perform the exact same thing that I just did with the open taper. So again, if we come over here, we're doing the exact same thing over again. Now, the only difference is I have the half guard attached to it. I begin with it all the way open, and I come right up to that next little line that I just made. I begin closing it. I step just underneath it. I continue putting it on an angle. I'm keeping it flat. I'm working it on the corners. And I'm taking it out. You're going to see the line starts to dissipate. It'll start to go away, and you're going to see it start to clean up. Now the nice thing about using this process is right now we're coming from skin to open taper, and it's perfect. We're working through the 0.5 open and the 0.5 close, or the half guard open and the half guard close. So now what we're looking to see is a perfectly clean skin fade from skin to a half open. If we do not have a perfectly clean skin fade from skin to a half open, we will return a step. So we'll return a step. We'll return back to the open taper. Okay? And if need be, we'll return back 2 steps. But if you're clean, if your fade is clean, you've been thorough in your steps, and you have no problems, we'll jump on to the number 1. Number 1 open. Now you'll see that this is gone. Number 1 open. And we're going to perform the exact same steps. We have it all the way open. We're up near where we put the line. We're closing it down, and And we're bumping that lever down little by little. And now it's important that you really start using your eyes, you really start paying attention to how your whole picture looks and make sure it's clean. What will we do if the number one step is not perfect? If there's some kind of mistake after we're done with this number one open, we'll just return back to the half. This is so important, and I can't even stress it enough. So many people will be on to the number two or on to the number three when they're not even done with this step. So simply just return back to the half, get the half guard on point, make sure that's done and it's clean. Of course, we did the number two on the very top before we did the parietal ridge. We do the one open, and in certain situations, you might actually have, if you're using a wall, you'll have a 1 1/2. Which in this case, you just use your 1 1/2 open, and you'll begin closing it. You'll use the exact same steps you did before. And taking a 1 1/2, so that's a 1.5 open into a number two is not going to create a line. You're going to see that that's going to work out just fine. So on my wall side, let's jump over to the other side. We're changing the way we do things, okay? I'm going to do this fade with the half attack. You guys have seen me use the half attack many times on my channel, so I just want to show you the wall side. This is the wall senior 5-star, put the half on, and I'm essentially doing the same thing, but let's see if you can follow me. So here we go. We're beginning this fade with a half closed, 0.5 closed, okay? So all I want to do is create that space with the 0.5 closed, 1.5 wide line, and I'm going to begin working underneath it before I fix all that, before I get into all that. So right now, the only thing I'm concerned about is keeping it closed and making that secondary line. So now what you see, I have that line, and you can see where I'm working in between. I'm going to take the half guard off, and I'm going to begin working with the open taper just underneath it. It's very important that if you're going to understand my half guard system, is that you understand that an open taper and a half guard are so close together in length that oftentimes you'll start to see that skin line disappear even when you go in with it open. So you can see me just keeping it at an angle, working my corners, and doing nothing special. I haven't even closed the lever yet, has dissipated that line to such an extent that it's maybe even acceptable in some bad barbershops. This would be considered a fade already. But you're going to continue working it. You're going to do the exact same thing that we did before. We have it entirely open. We're moving on an angle, we're using our corners, we'll begin bumping it down. So say 90% open, 70% open, I'm moving it back and forth, and I'm keeping it flat, and I'm keeping it on the head. Now, what you're basically going to have once this is done, is you're going to have a clean skin fade from skin to a half closed, okay? So this is where we are in the scale, we're from skin to a half closed. I'm just getting down now to finish this off. I have it entirely closed. If for some reason you have a line left over here from your trimmer, say there's a little bit of demarcation left over from your 5-0 or your trimmer, go back, get your trimmer, and get rid of it. This is so important. This is finishing step one before you go to step two. And you're going to make sure that it is thorough, make sure that it is clean, and you're not going to have any issues. All right? This is water. This is a long one. Okay, so the next step in our progression, once we've made sure that everything is clean, we've stepped down in the way that we've shown before, and the other thing that's different about the wall side is we actually have the 1.5 to work with as we approach the parietal ridge area. So once we're clear that we've got all that clean, we're happy with it, we've gotten all the little parts out of it that we don't like, we're going to move forward, and we're actually going to use the number one open. We're going to create another line. And we are going to do the exact same thing. So a lot of people think that the clipper that they use really matters. A lot of people think that the equipment that they use really matters. It is important to some extent. It's very important that you have the thing set up right. And if you don't have stuff set up right, you can check out my setup video where I talked about how important it is to have things zero gapped and everything just ready to go so that when you go on to this next step, you're not going to have issues. So on to the next step, we're going up with the one open, and we're going to begin working on this line now because we know that it is perfect from skin all the way to half closed, and we are going to begin working this all out. And once you got your equipment set up, you're going to find that this all falls into place easily, but now that we're working at a longer lengths, between 1 and half, it's gonna fade out even easier. So over here, we're gonna do the same thing. The only difference is, this changes to a 1, and this changes to a half. Now, we begin with it all the way open. That's how we made the line. We click it down, it's 90%, it's staying flat, and we're working it all the way down until we get rid of those lines. Now, if anybody here has any questions, because I am actually teaching this at the class right now, so this is what we're talking about. If anybody's got any questions, feel like I've skipped anything, or need clarifying anything, please just chip in if you need to. Okay?
I have a question. So you have a person whose hair is not blending because for whatever reason it just won't blend. Like, what is what should you do? Like, should you take it more close?
Well, that's actually not a bad question. All right, so if you hear it on the surface, if it's not blending, like somebody could say, like, well, blend it, you know. But the real thing is, like, if you're really struggling with a spot, there's only one thing you can ever really do, and that's usually you can go shorter, because you can't go longer. So you're probably gonna have to cut some more hair off. Okay. So what we're gonna make sure that we're doing is we're gonna make sure that we're being thorough. We're gonna make sure that we're holding it flat, and we're gonna make sure that we've got everything we can get out of each and every guard before we make our guard changes, before we jump to the next step. Because if everything's looking clean, everything's looking good, we know we can jump to the next step. But part of that is going to be developing your barber eye. And if you look, actually where I'm working on this kid now, sometimes you're going to have to texturize. What does texturizing mean, you guys? It means to remove bulk without affecting length. So I don't want to take my half guard into that little section I was working at, but it was a little thick. Okay, so I just was using the corner and reducing some of the bulk. Okay, now we finished with our 1.5. We did the exact same thing that we did there, and now we're working with the Andis Masters. Now there was a little bit left in the back of the head, so I'm working with the Andis Masters. I just start with them wide open. So just open taper. For Andis Masters, this is the best technique that I found, but open taper all the way from skin. Now the Masters have a large stroke. That means they have a lot of room for their lever to move. So it can move all the way from 000 to a number 1. And it will actually match nice, and it can play nice with some of these other clippers if you choose to mix and match clippers when you're using them. However, that is not necessary. Again, I'm doing the exact same thing. With the Andis Masters, I have it all the way open. I'll click it down literally 1 notch, click it down another notch, keeping it flat, keeping it on an angle, working those little spots out. And you know, some of this is difficult to understand when you first start because you don't know where to look. You don't know what is not perfect. You don't know how to make things perfect because you're not sure where you're supposed to be looking at. So that comes with just developing your eyes, developing your barber eye, and just understanding, you know, how it all works. You're just going to need to look for them imperfections, and you need to look for imperfections that you can actually do stuff about, because you're not going to be able to fix something if it's, say, a wrinkle in the head, or say it's some kind of divot or whatever. You know, there's people who have certain situations, and you're not going to see many barbers showcasing people with imperfect hair on YouTube, because let's face it, you guys will eat me alive in the comments, and I'll look incompetent as a result. So of course we always pick these perfect models with the most beautiful hair that we can, which might make you think that, you know, you're not doing a good job on certain people. Certain people, you can't make it look as perfect as you can on others. So before I move on to the next step with the Masters, of course I'm going to return to the trimmers. Remember, it's so important to make sure that if you have a trimmer line left over or any residual, you've got to get rid of that. And then we're going to jump right to the half guard. So that's half open. That means that this line is perfectly gone almost. We have a little bit of a line right here left over from that. So we're perfect from skin to open taper, and all we're working on is in this area. Once we're done with that, we're going to see that we're going to use the exact same technique, all the way open, bumping it down, bumping it down, bumping it down. Okay, and a lot of you guys have asked questions about like fading up versus fading down. Don't you think it makes more sense to fade down? Don't you think it makes more sense to fade up? And as you can see, if you've actually paid attention throughout this video, you can kind of see how I'm blending, how I'm using my tools. And you're gonna notice that I'm actually using the half guard now. I did one and then I went back to the half. But you're gonna notice that I'm actually using a combination of up fading and down fading, because obviously if I was to down fade, that would mean I could shave this guy's whole head with a number 2. Then go back and shave it again and stay just a little bit lower with 1 1/2 open. Then go back and shave the whole head again with a 1 1/2 closed. Obviously it's gonna be time consuming. I mean, what are we trying to do here? We're trying to make money, right? So how are we gonna do this? We're not gonna be able to make money if we're screwing around with people for 45, 50 minutes a cut. We need to come up with something that helps get them out the door with a high quality haircut in a reasonable amount of time, which this system or any of these systems that you see showcased with these particular clippers, it's gonna help you with it, okay? Now, I'm gonna go back through. You guys have asked me many times in a lot of videos to show some of my detail work, show how I clean up certain haircuts and what I do. And I tell you guys this a lot of times. If you're very thorough in your steps, you're not gonna have much cleanup to do. You're not gonna have to work too hard at perfecting that blend. The blend is gonna be nearly perfect before you even have to go into all that. You don't even really have to go crazy there. So I'm gonna cut the top of this guy's hair. But again, if I was to put a number 2 on here, you could see that flat it's very easy to maintain flat, because you can see it's designed perfect. That's exactly how it is. So all I'm saying is, if you guys are going to go after this and you want to make sure that you get this hair cut properly, make sure that you're holding them flat. You see me going through, I have notching shears. All I'm doing is taking out some of that bulk, and I'm going to go through, I'm going to do a little bit of texturizing shear over comb. I want to reduce a little bit of that weight in that parietal ridge area, and I want to knock that out. I want to make sure that I get that nice and clean. If there's anything that I want to reduce bulk in or reduce tension in, that's what I need to do. If I were you, gotta hold them all like this, all 3. Bam.
True.
That'd be the way of it. That'd be the way of it.
Oh,
So once you've reduced all that bulk, and this is something I always do before I cut the top, I remove the bulk, because I don't want to cut a ton of extra hair if I don't need to. I can reduce some of the bulk, and then I can go through and then I can cut the hair. This is just another little time-saving tip, but we're going to be able to reduce that bulk, and we're going to be able to perfect that blend. Okay, you see me just going through. I'm just texturizing it. I'm getting out any of that high density spots. For any of you guys who don't know, density is the amount of hair per square inch, and it varies throughout the hair, and it varies throughout the head, and especially in different shapes of the head, you can wind up seeing a higher volume of density because of the contour of the head. So anyways, you're just going to go through there. We're going to clean that up. A lot of people really don't know how to use their blow dryer, so I'm just going to mention this real quick. When you're blow drying, you want to make sure that you get that hair 100% dry and as hot as you can take it, and then hit the cool button, and that will set it in place. A lot of times before I do my edge up, I'm going to blow dry up all that hair, get it up out of my way, and then I'm going to be free to do the edge up, and I'm going to get everything just situated perfectly. I like to put a little bit of hairspray on before I do my edge up. It just helps to hold the hair still. And this kid, his hair is unbelievably perfect. It doesn't need to be, you don't really need to worry about it too much. You just start in the middle and work your ways out to the corners. Now, if you have somebody who has a high side and a low side, definitely always start on the low side, because if you wind up starting on the high side, then the only thing you're going to be able to do is probably push the low side up too high. So it's just going to be easier for you if you start on the low side. So wherever there's an imperfection, that's where I like to start. But when a person has a perfect hairline like this kid, just go ahead and start at the middle and work your way out to the edges. Now, everybody on Instagram and other channels, they're just going to show you like the last 2 taps and make it seem like they did their edge up in just one shot, bang. It's never really like that. Sometimes you get it quick, sometimes you got to work at it. The best thing I could tell you is tip their head at different angles, tip them down, tip them up, tip them because like you'll get a different perspective when you tip their head up. You could see the edge up might look a little more crooked. Always edge ups look perfect when you tip your head down. So you want to make sure that you're not just looking at that down angle because you're higher than him. Move him around, move yourself around a little bit, and use your mirror, because that's going to give you like, say your mirror is 4 feet away. That's going to basically give you 4 feet there, 4 feet back. That's giving you like an 8-foot perspective. So, the more you use your mirror, the more accurate you're going to be with it also. Now, never be afraid to go back in there and detail it a little bit further if you have to. And once you got it perfect, we're just going to go ahead. We're going to follow it up with the straight razor. and always use a little something. Use some kind of shave gel, use some kind of thing that will help the blade slide smoother. And if need be, you can use some scissors to get rid of some of those little hairs, those tiny ones that are taking up your edge and making it not look so great. Just go ahead and knock those out real quick. Nothing to it. Now, it's really important that you use some kind of shave gel because it's so easy to cut somebody, and if you have a little bit of lubrication, the blade's going to cut a whole lot better anyways. It's going to slide a lot better, and the likelihood of you making a mistake decreases because of the fact that when you are pushing too hard, when you're pushing too hard on your client in order to try to make that edge up perfect, and you accidentally slip and go a little bit too far, yeah, that can happen, especially if you're not using any kind of shaving cream or shave gel, or if your blade is not sharp. It's so important. If you have a sharp blade, it's going to go a lot easier. You're going to have a lot less likely chance that you're going to make a mistake, and a lot less likely that you will cut them. So if you pull out a blade, it's very common. These blades suck, man. They're always dull. I always have to throw stuff out. One of my favorites, I got the link in the description for them, is the Astras. They seem to be pretty good on the whole, but no blade is perfect by any means, especially not those feather artist blades that cost twice as much. They're no better than these other ones. The Dorco blades have really taken a backseat. They're really not doing what they used to do anymore. And I'm not really having much great luck with other blades. So for now, for me, it's Astras, and they're working out pretty well for me. And I don't really have any other, blade recommendations. And if you guys do, please leave them in the description. I'd love to hear about it. Now, you're gonna see me go through. I'm gonna do the design. I'm gonna leave you here if you want to check that out. That's cool. But anyways, I just wanted to answer a couple questions from my subscribers. You guys have been asking a lot of great questions. So many of you have. And I just haven't had time to reply to everybody, and I'm sorry. But one of the questions was, how do you juggle appointments in a walk-in shop? That's a really good question. I haven't really got that all figured out 100% myself, but the thing about it is there's some advantages to both sides. Okay, so we'll just say, for just briefly, I should make an entire video on this, but if you have walk-ins coming in and they are sitting there and they are waiting. Let's say you're busy and you got a lot of walk-ins that are waiting, and all of a sudden your client comes in who has an appointment. He appears to jump the line to those walk-ins. Those walk-ins get upset. Sometimes they leave the shop. Sometimes they never come back. That's one scenario that can play out. Now, on the other hand, the person who has got the appointment is more likely to become loyal to you and become a more regular customer, where these walk-ins might be considering to go to just about anybody. So you are basically taking the risk of maybe acquiring a new client for servicing an old client, or developing some more customer loyalty, which might be more important to you if you were going to wind up switching shops. But I'm in the same position myself. I'm doing appointments, but my shop is walk-in. And what I find that works a little bit is I just go out into the waiting room and I look at everybody that's sitting there, and I just tell them I work by appointment only, and if I can, I accommodate walk-ins when I can, but my primary job is to work by appointments, and you guys can feel free to make one if you like. That's the best way to do it, but you can't just have people jumping you. You just got to go back and you got to go and talk to them, and they will understand, usually, for the most part. So, but other than that, there's been a couple other questions. I'll have to answer them in other videos. I know I've kept you here a long time. Thank you guys so much if you stuck around and you checked out this whole video. I really hope it helps. Let me know if you learned something in the comments. This video has been a real thorn in my side. I've run into serious computer problems. I might be having to get a new computer pretty soon. It was a very difficult job to edit this. It's so long. I use so many cameras. There's so many clips. And yeah, I was pulling my hair out to try to get this to you guys. But again, thank you so much for checking me out. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And I'll see you guys in my next video. I'm out of here. Peace.